Hand over the keys. I won't let a deadbeat tenant endanger this building. The front door is for residents who pay. People like you use the back. Think about your daughter. Leave quietly, or I make this a criminal case.
He covered it when you said you paid.
Man, imagine paying every month, then losing your keys before your neighbors. Moody thought Anika had no proof. Her daughter saw the page he hid. A corrupt manager had 6 days to destroy a single mother before the billionaire who owned her building discovered the truth. Her neighbors turned against her. Her eviction notice was posted for everyone to see, and the manager behind it all thought he had erased every trace of the truth. But her 9-year-old daughter had seen one detail he missed. This is where Anika's fight begins. "Take the keys off your belt, Ms. Beard." Wilfred Moody held out his hand across the folding table while 46 residents watched Anika Beard stand in the back row of the Hilltop Gardens community room. Anika did not touch the ring yet. 14 keys hung from the clip at her waist. Boiler room, roof hatch, electrical cages, supply closets, the stubborn brass key for the basement shutoff. She had used 3 of them before lunch that day. Rust from a leaking riser stained the left knee of her navy coveralls. Moody waited with the patient expression he used when a tenant had already lost an argument but had not accepted it. "You're firing me in front of the building?" Anika asked. "I'm protecting company property while we review a serious account problem." He lifted a red folder so everyone could see her name printed on the tab. "Apartment 3C, 4 months without a recorded rent payment, $5,380 with fees. Your employment gives you access to residential and mechanical areas, so the company cannot ignore the risk." Beside Anika, her 9-year-old daughter, Annabella, closed her math workbook. She still held her pencil between both hands. "I paid on the 3rd of every month," Anika said. "The same way I have for 5 years. The ledger is complete." "Then the ledger is wrong." A few tenants looked at Moody. Most looked away from Anika. Alessia Mason, who had spent nearly every Saturday morning at Anika's kitchen table for 3 years, lowered her eyes to her phone. A man near the wall whispered, "4 months?" as though the number had answered a question he had not known he carried. Moody's assistant, Corey Lindsay, sat at the end of the table with a blue binder open in front of him. He was young, narrow-shouldered, and usually too careful with his words. Tonight, he would not look up at all. Moody extended his hand another inch. "The keys, please." Anika unhooked the ring. For 5 years, those keys had brought her out of bed for flooded kitchens, broken lobby doors, frozen radiators, and one elevator that trapped Herbie George with 6 bags of groceries. Hilltop had called her maintenance staff when it wanted the work done, and a resident when it wanted the rent. She walked down the center aisle and placed the ring in Moody's palm. The keys struck his metal watch band with a clean, bright click. "Thank you," he said. Herbie George pushed halfway out of his chair, leaning on his cane. "She fixed my heat at midnight last January. You told me Monday." "This meeting is not about a radiator, Mr. George. It is about whether she does what she says." Moody turned one page in the folder. "You're out of order." Herbie sat, but he kept his chin raised. Moody read the balance again, slower this time, then announced the deadline. Friday at 5. 72 hours. If the money was not received, Hilltop would file for possession of apartment 3C. Corey removed a notice from the blue binder. The paper was red, thick enough that it would not curl at the corners. Moody held it up before handing it back. "This will be posted tonight under standard procedure." Anika felt Annabella's shoulder press against her arm. Moody closed the folder. "Until your account is current, use the service entrance when entering or leaving the property. The main lobby is for residents in good standing and their guests." That line changed the room. 2 people looked embarrassed. One woman in the second row frowned. Moody had gone beyond the ledger and into something meaner, though he kept the same quiet voice. Anika picked up her tool belt from beneath her chair. "I live here," she said. for the moment. No one clapped. No one protested except Herbie. The silence was worse because it belonged to people who knew her name. 20 minutes later, the red notice was taped to Anika's apartment door where every person on the third floor could read it. Final notice of non-payment. Deadline, Friday, 5 p.m. A neighbor walking past slowed, took a picture, and kept going. Anika stood in the hallway with Annabella. She wanted to rip the notice down, but the photo had already left the building before she had. Taking the paper would only give Moody another sentence about interference with procedure. Inside, Annabella set her backpack on a kitchen chair. Anika opened the refrigerator and found 2 eggs, half an onion, and a carton of milk that smelled wrong. She had promised pancakes for dinner. She changed the plan without discussing it. Egg sandwiches, she said, the deluxe kind. Annabella did not smile. She opened her notebook to a blank page. Mom, was he lying? Yes. Can you prove it? Anika cracked an egg against the bowl and drove a piece of shell into the yolk. She fished it out with her thumb. Hilltop had been promising an online payment portal since the year she moved in. Until then, residents delivered checks or money orders to the management office. Receipts depended on whether the printer worked, whether Corey was at the desk, or whether Moody claimed the receipt book had been moved to the regional office. Anika never paid cash. She had learned too early what cash became when the person holding it said he never received it. The skillet began to smoke. Mom, I know. No, look. Annabella turned her notebook around. She had drawn the table from the meeting. Moody's bottle of water, Corey's blue binder, the red folder with Anika Beard written on the tab. Beneath the folder, she had sketched the corner of a yellow page. Across the top, in careful block letters, Annabella had copied 3 words. Varela owner review. Anika turned off the burner. You saw that? He covered it when you said you paid. There were boxes under the words. One had your apartment number. Did you see anything else? A number with a comma. I think it started with 11, maybe 17. His hand was there. Annabella sniffed the air. The bread is burning too. Anika slid the skillet off the heat and looked at the drawing again. Varela was not a department. It was a name attached to the signs that had appeared beside Hilltop's logo 18 months earlier, after the property was sold. Varela Urban Holdings owned more apartment buildings than Anika could count. Its founder, Santiago Varela, was the kind of man newspapers described by the value of companies he controlled: billionaire developer, infrastructure investor, civic donor. Depending on the article, he was either rebuilding neglected neighborhoods or buying them faster than residents could understand the paperwork. Anika had never seen him at Hilltop. If an owner review was coming, Moody was not merely trying to collect 4 months of rent. He was trying to make missing money look like tenant debt before someone above him opened the books. And he had chosen the one tenant who worked inside the building, knew which offices stayed locked, and had reason to notice when the records did not match the repairs. Annabella pulled the bread from the toaster and scraped the black edge with a butter knife. Are we going to have to leave? She asked. Anika looked toward the door, where the red paper showed as a dark rectangle through the peephole. Not tonight, she said. It was not the answer Annabella wanted. It was the only one Anika could prove. After her daughter went to bed, Anika dragged a kitchen chair to the pantry and reached for the dented cookie tin on the top shelf. The last time that tin had mattered, she had been 11 years old and all of her family's furniture had been sitting on a Memphis sidewalk. The cookie tin had once been red. Time had faded it toward pink, and rust had eaten a rough patch into one corner. Anika set it on the kitchen table and waited before lifting the lid. Inside were 61 money order stubs arranged by year, each bundle held with a rubber band. 5 years and 1 month of rent. Dates, amounts, serial numbers, and the same payee written in Anika's square handwriting, Hilltop Property Group. The habit came from her mother, though the tin did not. When Anika was 11, she came home from school to find their sofa beside the curb. One cushion leaned against a chain-link fence. Clothes had been packed into grocery bags. Her mother sat on the bottom porch step with an eviction paper folded across her knees. The landlord said 3 months of rent had never arrived. Her mother had paid him in cash every Friday he came by. He always promised a receipt later. In court, the judge asked what she could show. She had nothing except the same story repeated more urgently. That night, they slept in a church fellowship hall. In the dark, her mother explained the lesson without raising her voice. When somebody won't leave you paper, you leave your own. Put down the date, keep the copy. Don't count on another person remembering for you. Anika had followed that rule through every apartment, every job, and the end of a marriage that left her with a daughter and a last name she kept because Annabella carried it too. The disputed months were in the tin: September, October, November, December. All 4 money orders had been negotiated. None had been returned. The funds had gone somewhere. Anika photographed each stub beneath the kitchen light. She used a sugar jar to prop up her phone and checked every serial number before moving on. By 2 in the morning, the files were in 2 separate online accounts. The originals remained on the table. At 7, she drove Annabella to school, then continued to the vocational center on Broadway East. The accounting clerk behind the glass recognized her. "You're here about the HVAC balance?" Anika nodded. 3 installments remained, each $490. 2 years of evening classes sat behind them: wiring diagrams after bedtime, Saturday labs, refrigerant calculations during lunch breaks. The certificate was supposed to be finished in March. Without it, she would keep earning maintenance wages in places where replacement parts were considered optional until a ceiling collapsed. "I lost my job yesterday," Anika said. "Can you move the payments?" The clerk's expression softened, but the policy did not. 1 installment could move by 10 days. A larger deferment required financial aid review, which usually took several weeks. Anika thanked her and returned to the parking lot. Her checking account held $614. Hilltop demanded more than $5,000. The school wanted nearly $1,500. Her car needed front brake pads before winter. She sat behind the wheel and set the dashboard timer for 90 seconds. For that minute and a half, she let herself imagine the worst parts clearly. Annabella's bed in storage, the school account frozen, a shelter intake form asking why they had no place to go. When the timer sounded, Anika started the car. Fear could sit in the passenger seat. It was not getting the keys. That evening, an envelope waited on the kitchen table. Annabella had written for rent across the front in pencil. Inside were $47 in bills and coins. Her aquarium trip permission slip was folded beneath them. Above the parent signature line, Annabella had written, "I changed my mind." Anika found her in the bedroom pretending to organize markers. "You did not change your mind. It's just fish. You have talked about those fish since September." Annabella capped a green marker. $47 is a lot. "It is, and it belongs to you." Anika put the money back into the ceramic bank on the dresser. She did not promise everything would be fine. Children noticed when adults made promises with no plan behind them. A knock came at 9:40. Corey Lindsay stood outside with his jacket zipped to his chin. He had no binder. He kept glancing toward the stairwell. Anika left the chain fastened and opened the door a few inches. "Does Moody know you're here?" "No." "Then talk from there." Corey lowered his voice. "If you have receipts or bank records, I can compare them to the payment entries. I enter most of the ledger adjustments. I may be able to tell you what happened." It was almost exactly what Anika needed. That made it dangerous. "Why help me now?" Corey rubbed the side of his thumb against a frayed cuff. "Because the audit list changed yesterday. Your unit was added after lunch." "What audit list?" He hesitated too long. "The owner's office is reviewing cash exceptions and maintenance purchases. Moody has been preparing files for weeks." The paper said Varela. Corey looked at her then. "Mr. Varela is scheduled to visit the Baltimore properties next Wednesday. Not an auditor." Him. Anika had expected a department, not the billionaire whose signature appeared in company press releases. Corey continued. Tomorrow morning, management plans an inventory inspection in your apartment. The list says you were assigned a portable welding unit and 2 industrial drills. I was not assigned any company tools. I know what the old list said. Do you know what the new one says because you changed it? Corey's face tightened. For a moment, Anika thought he would leave. I entered what I was instructed to enter, he said. That is not an answer. It is the answer I can give you from a hallway. He glanced toward the stairs again. Do not keep original records in that apartment tomorrow. Corey left without asking to see the tin. Anika closed the door and stood with her hand on the lock. Maybe he was frightened. Maybe he was part of it. Both could be true. She returned to the table and continued photographing the stubs. At the 14th one, she stopped. The date was 20 months old. The amount matched her normal rent. But the payee line did not say Hilltop Property Group. It said W.R. Moody. She remembered the morning. The office had been crowded. Moody said corporate was changing deposit accounts and told her to make that month's money order payable to him so he could transfer it with the batch. She had been late for class and irritated by the delay. She bought another money order at the corner market, copied his name onto the stub, and hurried away. At the time, it had felt like bad organization. Now it was a numbered record of rent money written directly to the man accusing her of non-payment. Anika slid that stub into a separate envelope. It did not prove a scheme. Moody could claim the transfer had been approved. He could produce a reimbursement or call it a temporary collection process. Still, it was the first document that connected him to the money without depending on anyone's memory. At 6 the next morning, Anika packed the tin inside a gym bag beneath a towel and a pair of work gloves. She was halfway down the stairs when Alessia Mason appeared on the landing carrying a Hilltop envelope. Alessia pushed the envelope into her handbag as soon as she saw Anika. What did they give you? Anika asked. Nothing. Renewal paperwork. Your lease does not renew until February. Alessia looked toward the 3rd floor. She had borrowed sugar from Anika, cried at her table after a breakup, and allowed Annabella to practice braids on her hair. That morning, she stood 2 steps away and seemed to be measuring the cost of every word. I'm sorry about the meeting, she said. That is not what I asked. Alessia tightened her grip on the bag. I have my own daughter. I cannot get into a fight with management. What are they asking you to say? Her mouth opened, but no answer came. She moved past Anika, then paused on the next landing. Do not leave anything important in your apartment, she said, without turning around. The outside door closed behind her. Anika carried the gym bag to apartment 1A. Herbie George opened before she knocked twice. Tea is already made. His apartment smelled of toast and menthol rub. A baseball replay murmured on television. Anika set the bag between her shoes and told him about the yellow owner review page. Herbie stirred his tea until the spoon clicked against the cup. Varela came here once, he said. The billionaire? He did not look like one that day. No tie, coat with rain on the shoulders. He asked why the 4th floor radiators were cold. When? Right after his company bought the property. 18 months, maybe. Moody followed him around smiling so hard I thought his face would stay that way. Herbie rose slowly and searched a sideboard drawer. He returned with a bent business card. Santiago Varela, founder and executive chairman, Varela Urban Holdings. A mobile number had been crossed out in pen. Beneath it, Herbie had written another number. He called me after the visit, Herbie said. Asked if the heat was fixed. I told him yes, it was, because you fixed it. Did you ever speak again? I called 6 months later when Mrs. Hargrove's ceiling fell. The new number went to an assistant. She took notes. Nobody called back. Anika turned the card over. On the back, Herbie had written 4B, Turner. Who were the Turners? A family who lived upstairs before you came. Moody said they had not paid for months. Mrs. Turner worked for the post office. She swore she gave him cash. What happened? They argued. Then a truck showed up one night. By morning, they were gone. Herbie rubbed his thumb along the handle of his cane. A company man reviewed the account later. Not Varela. Some lawyer said there was not enough proof. Why is their apartment number on the card? I tried to tell Varela about them when he visited. He wrote it down. Moody interrupted and said the matter had been closed before the sale. Herbie looked embarrassed by what came next. I let it go. I had my heat back. That was what I needed that week. Anika understood. People rarely chose silence because they approved of harm. Usually they had rent due, medicine to collect, a child to pick up, or one fragile thing they could not risk. She placed the card in the envelope with the unusual money order stub. At the bank, Anika signed the access log and put the cookie tin in a safe deposit box. She checked the lock twice. The photographs went to 2 accounts with different passwords. She kept only 4 disputed stubs, the one payable to Moody and Herbie's card. On the way home, she called the number Herbie had written. A recorded voice thanked her for contacting the executive office of Varela Urban Holdings. The mailbox was full. She found a general email address on the company website and sent a short message with no attachments. It returned 11 minutes later as undeliverable because the mailbox no longer accepted external complaints. A billionaire's name was on the building, but reaching him required getting past the same company that might have reason to keep her quiet. When Anika reached the 3rd floor, a second notice had been posted beside the red one. Inventory inspection, Thursday, 10 a.m. The notice listed 1 portable welding unit and 2 industrial drills assigned to her employee number. Total value, $2,300. If the equipment was not produced, Hilltop reserved the right to make a theft referral. Anika read it twice. Hilltop had denied her requests for those tools. She used her own drill, her own meter, and a wrench set purchased 1 piece at a time. The old denial emails remained in her work account, but she no longer had access. Moody had disabled it the night he took her keys. The accusation had changed shape. If the rent records survived, Moody would make the person presenting them look dishonest. Anika photographed both notices, then walked to the management office. The door was locked. Through the glass, she could see Moody at his desk. He watched her knock, then returned to his computer. Corey was not there. Anika called Hilltop's regional line. After 12 minutes on hold, a clerk said property inventory was handled locally. She asked for company counsel and was transferred to a voicemail that cut off after 30 seconds. Back upstairs, she emptied the hall closet. She photographed every shelf, every tool, and the serial numbers on equipment she owned. Herbie stood in the doorway holding that day's newspaper, so the date appeared in several images. "This will not stop them from lying," he said. "No, it makes the lie work harder." And Annabella came home while they were putting the closet back together. She carried her notebook under her arm instead of inside her backpack. "I'm keeping this with me," she announced. "Why?" "That man does not like papers." Anika almost corrected her. Instead, she said, "Put your name inside the cover." That night, she moved her own tools to Herbie's apartment and left the closet nearly empty. She fastened the interior security latch before bed. At 11:52, a soft pressure touched the apartment door, not a knock. Metal turned in the lock, stopped against the latch, then turned back. Anika sat upright. By the time she reached the peephole, the hallway looked empty. She did not open the door. In the morning, the doormat was upside down. At 9:55 Thursday morning, Moody arrived with Corey and a broad man wearing new Hilltop coveralls. The creases from the packaging still ran down his sleeves. A large black tool bag hung from one hand. "Inventory inspection," Moody said. "You may wait in the hallway." "This is my leased home." "It is company property." "Both can be true." Anika held up her phone. "I'm recording. Tell me what room you are entering and what item you expect to find." Moody's eyes moved to the phone, then back to her. "Record if you want. Do not interfere." Anika slid the phone upright into the chest pocket of her coveralls. The screen went dark, but the video continued. The inspection had a rhythm to it. Moody read from a tablet. The man opened cabinets. Corey placed check marks in the blue binder. Industrial drill model B18, 2 units. Not present, the man said. They were never issued to me, Anika said. Statement noted, Moody replied. The man headed toward Annabella's bedroom. There are no company tools in my daughter's room. All storage areas are subject to inspection. He went in anyway. He pulled 2 plastic bins from beneath the bed and tipped one onto the floor. Library books, colored pencils, and paper fish from the school aquarium unit slid across the rug. His boot landed on a blue drawing. Move your foot, Anika said. The man looked at Moody. Moody waited a beat too long. Move it. The boot lifted. Anika picked up the drawing and placed it on the dresser. She did not thank either man. They returned to the hallway closet. The shelves were nearly bare. The broad man crouched, shifted the tool bag close to his leg, and reached behind a folded blanket Anika had left on the lowest shelf. He pulled out an orange portable welding unit. A white asset tag on the side read HPG-0447. Corey stopped writing. Moody's mouth tightened in what might have been satisfaction if he had allowed himself more of it. There it is. That machine was not in my apartment last night. Corey, record location, concealed behind personal property in former employee's hall closet. Corey's pen hovered. Write it, Moody said. Corey did. Anika looked at the blanket. Annabella had used it during a movie the night before. If the man had wrapped the welder in it, touching the cloth now would tell her nothing. Fingerprints would be mixed. The asset tag proved only that Hilltop owned the unit. Moody turned the tablet toward her. Sign the inventory record. No. Your refusal will be included. Include it. He closed the cover. The rent deadline remains tomorrow at 5. Hilltop will also proceed with a theft referral unless we reach a reasonable resolution. What resolution? You vacate voluntarily. You return any remaining company property. You stop distributing unsupported allegations about payment records. The company may then decide that a criminal referral is unnecessary. The words were tidy, the threat was not. You put that machine in my closet. Moody gave her a tired look, as though she were making the morning inconvenient. I suggest you think about your daughter before making statements you cannot support. Anika moved between him and Annabella's bedroom. I am thinking about her. The 3 men left. Corey stayed half a step behind. At the shoe cabinet, he shifted the binder against his chest. A folded page slipped out and landed near Anika's keys bowl. It fell too flat and too close to be an accident. Corey did not look down. He followed Moody into the hall. The page was an internal schedule from Varela Urban Holdings. Baltimore Portfolio Owner Review. Wednesday, November 19th. Hilltop Gardens, 2 p.m. Lead, Santiago Varela. Scope, cash receipt exceptions, maintenance inventory, resident removal exposure. A handwritten note at the bottom said, Moody wants 3C resolved before arrival. Anika read it, then opened the video on her phone. For most of the inspection, the angle was poor. She had cabinet doors, elbows, the back of Moody's tablet. She moved slowly through the recording. Just before the man opened the closet, his body turned sideways. His tool bag rose. For less than 2 seconds, an orange corner appeared beneath the blanket as he guided the object toward the lowest shelf. Then his shoulder blocked the view. A moment later, he reached in and found it. Anika saved the clip separately and uploaded the full video before doing anything else. It was useful, not perfect. Moody could claim the man had moved an item discovered in another room. The angle did not show the entire machine crossing from bag to closet, but it contradicted the written report's clean version of events. At noon, another envelope slid under her door. Hilltop ordered her to attend an informal settlement conference at the regional office the next day at 2. Participants, Moody, company counsel Jonathan Donaldson, and Corey. Anika considered refusing. A closed meeting gave Moody control over who heard what and how the conversation was summarized. But refusing would become another line in his file, and Santiago Varela's visit was still 6 days away. She took the 4 disputed stubs from the bank and left every other original in the box. Before Friday's meeting, she tried Santiago's executive office again. This time, an assistant answered. "Mr. Varela does not accept direct resident calls," the woman said. "I have evidence that a manager in one of his buildings is stealing rent and planting company equipment." There was a pause, followed by the sound of typing. "I can open a case with resident relations." Resident relations reports to the regional office. The manager I am reporting runs that office. I understand your concern. No, you understand the category. Anika kept her voice even. The owner review schedule has my apartment number on it. Tell Mr. Varela the tenant in 3C has the original payment serials. The typing stopped. Where did you get an owner review schedule? Anika ended the call. 5 minutes later, Moody texted her. Bringing confidential company material to tomorrow's conference will be treated as additional misconduct. The assistant had not reached Santiago. She had reached the problem. The regional conference room was cold enough that Anika kept her jacket on. Moody and Corey sat on one side of the table. Jonathan Donaldson, Hilltop's attorney, sat between them with reading glasses low on his nose and several yellow notes stuck to the file. One chair waited across from all three. Donaldson began without ceremony. Ms. Beard, the company has 4 unpaid months, equipment recovered from your apartment, and a resident statement saying she saw Hilltop tools there before the inspection. I want your response before we discuss settlement. Anika placed 4 money order stubs in a row. September through December, $1,040 each. Every serial number can be traced. Every money order was negotiated. Donaldson reached for the first. Moody opened his folder. Purchased money orders are not proof of delivery. The purchaser fills out the payee line. The issuer keeps an image of the negotiated instrument, Anika said, which may show where it was deposited. It does not show why you handed it to anyone. Moody laid out the building ledger, the inventory report, and Alessia's signed statement. Anika read the first paragraph. It said Alessia had observed an orange welding unit in apartment 3C during a Saturday visit. Alessia had not been inside Anika's closet in months. Donaldson removed his glasses. Wilfred, who prepared this statement? Resident relations. Which person? I would have to check. That was the first crack Anika saw, small but real. She played the inspection video. The orange corner appeared for less than 2 seconds. Donaldson leaned toward the phone. Corey stared at the table. Moody did not change expression. The technician was repositioning an item already located during the search. Your report says it was first discovered behind the blanket. Then the report may be imprecise about the sequence. Anika looked at Donaldson. A minute ago, the report was evidence. Now it is imprecise. Donaldson tapped one yellow note with his pen. What is the proposed settlement? Moody turned a tablet toward Anika. She would vacate by Saturday morning, pay for the welding unit in installments, waive claims against Hilltop, and stop contacting Varela Urban Holdings. In return, the company would provide a neutral job reference and consider closing the theft matter without further action. And the rent? Anika asked. The balance would remain part of the move-out accounting, Moody said. So I admit I owe money I paid, admit I stole a machine you brought into my home, and promise not to speak to the owner. You avoid a longer dispute. My daughter loses her home. Your daughter goes where you go. Moody said it normally. That made Donaldson look at him for the first time with open dislike. Anika gathered the stubs. I will not sign this. In the elevator, her hands shook hard enough that she pressed them into her coat pockets. The evidence had not changed the meeting. Moody had simply shifted from denying the documents to questioning their meaning. Her phone rang in the parking garage. The caller ID said Varela Urban Holdings. Ms. Beard, a man said. His voice was low, slightly rough, and impatient in a way that suggested he was trying not to sound impatient. This is Santiago Varela. Anika did not answer immediately. I received a report that you obtained confidential review material, he continued. Before we discuss that, I need the serial numbers from the 3 stubs you mentioned. You called about your schedule before you called about my eviction. Silence. Yes, he said. That was the wrong order. The admission surprised her more than an apology would have. Why should I trust you? You should not yet. Give me one serial number. I will have an outside bank confirmation firm trace it without sending the request through Hilltop. One number only. That is fair. Anika read him September's serial number. Santiago asked where she was. She told him only that she was leaving the regional office. Do not return there today, he said, and do not send documents to any company address. My executive assistant forwarded your complaint into the normal system this morning. Moody received it. That was my office's failure. Your office has a lot of failures. I know some of them. I may be learning the rest. He asked to meet that evening at a coffee shop in Fells Point. Anika refused to come alone. My neighbor will sit at another table. Santiago hesitated. I wanted fewer people involved. That sounds like the kind of thing that protects a company. It does. His answer came too quickly to be polished. It can also protect a witness. But bring your neighbor. At 7, Santiago arrived 12 minutes late wearing a dark coat and no tie. He was 50, perhaps a little older, with gray at his temples and the tired face of a man who had slept on an airplane. No security guard entered with him, though Anika noticed a black SUV across the street. Herbie sat 2 tables away, pretending to read a newspaper upside down. Santiago bought black coffee, removed the cardboard sleeve, and tore it into narrow strips while Anika spoke. The habit looked automatic. By the time she finished, 6 brown pieces lay beside his cup. He traced the serial number result on his phone. The September money order had been deposited into a commercial account that did not belong to Hilltop. The account was controlled by a maintenance vendor called Harbor Access Services. Do you know the company? He asked. I know the name. They build Hilltop for emergency work my crew did ourselves. Santiago stopped tearing the sleeve. That detail had not been in any ledger Anika showed him. It came from the work she had performed and the invoices she had seen taped to Moody's desk. Santiago leaned back. Tomorrow morning I can place an executive hold on the eviction and theft referral. Can? If I do it before the bank trace is formally documented, Moody will know I am investigating him. He may destroy records. If you wait, my deadline expires at 5. He looked at the strips of cardboard instead of at her. For several seconds, he said nothing. Then he picked up his phone and called his general counsel. Freeze every resident removal and inventory referral in the Baltimore portfolio, he said. Effective now. Yes, all of them. I understand what it does to the refinancing schedule. When he ended the call, Anika asked, what does it do? It delays a closing my board expects on Monday. Possibly ends it. That is your problem. Yes, Santiago said. Tonight, it is. The executive hold stopped the Friday eviction, but it did not stop Moody. At 6 that evening, Hilltop filed a theft complaint. 2 police officers came to apartment 3C the next morning. Anika gave them copies of the inspection clip and the equipment denial notices. She said the originals were protected and that counsel would provide the full chain. She did not have counsel yet. The sentence bought her time. After the officers left, Annabella opened her notebook to a drawing she had made Wednesday night. 3 men stood outside 3C. One held a large rectangular bag. The doormat was upside down. I heard the key, she said. I looked through the peephole. They could not open the door because of the little bar. Why did you not tell me? You were already worried. She pointed to the tallest figure. This one held his phone toward the stairs. Anika pictured the landing. 11 months earlier, packages had disappeared from the third floor. Moody said cameras were not in the budget. So Anika bought a small motion unit herself and hid it inside the shell of a dead smoke detector. When the theft stopped, she forgot about it. She climbed a folding ladder and removed the memory card. The battery had died, but not before recording Wednesday at 11:52 p.m. The video showed Moody using a management key. The interior latch held. The broad man waited with the tool bag. Corey stood back, filming the attempted entry on his phone. The footage did not show the welder entering the apartment. It showed the effort, the people, and the bag. Combined with the inspection clip, Annabella's dated drawing, and the altered inventory, it made the official story harder to maintain. Santiago came to 3C on Sunday evening with an outside forensic accountant named Priya Nanduri. He had wanted a downtown office. Anika insisted that he review the evidence where the hallway, closet, and camera location could be checked. He arrived carrying 2 phones and answering neither. During the first hour, one screen lit repeatedly with board chair. He turned it face down. Priya traced 3 disputed money orders to Harbor Axis. The vendor's owner was Moody's brother-in-law. She also found invoice numbers entered on days when Anika's work logs showed Hilltop employees had completed the repairs. Santiago examined the old money order stub payable to W.R. Moody. "This one matters," he said. "It matters because I kept it," Anika replied. "Your company had the bank statements." He nodded once. Near midnight, Santiago stepped into the hall to take a call. His voice stayed low, but Anika heard enough. "No, Elena, I am not asking you to defend me. You were right about the complaint system. I know that is not the same as fixing it." When he returned, he explained without being asked. Elena was his adult daughter, an architect who had left Varela Urban after arguing that the company bought troubled buildings faster than it could supervise them. They had spoken only a few times in the past year. "She thinks I use audits after damage because prevention is slower," he said. "Is she wrong?" "Not entirely." Santiago proposed securing the records quietly, removing Moody after the review, and correcting resident accounts before making any public statement. He said a premature announcement could warn whoever above Moody had protected the scheme. Anika heard the practical argument. She also heard the instinct to keep the company's failure inside the company. "Your last quiet review left the Turners gone," she said. "Moody has called a resident meeting for Wednesday. He plans to use my name again. If the correction is private, his accusation stays public." Santiago pressed his thumb against the edge of his coffee cup. A public meeting could compromise the financial investigation. So could letting him run it. They did not agree that night. On Wednesday morning, Anika went to the bank for the cookie tin. The bundles inside had shifted. One rubber band lay loose. The access log showed that a woman had entered the box Monday using identification in Anika's name and a notarized power of attorney. Anika had never signed one. Bank security identified the woman as a Hilltop Records employee. She had photographed the stubs but removed nothing. That changed Santiago's decision. Someone inside his company had crossed from altered ledgers into forged authority and unauthorized bank access. At 4 that afternoon, his board voted to pause the Baltimore refinancing and demanded that he step away from the investigation. Santiago refused. 2 directors resigned from the special committee. The closing disappeared. At 5:30, he called Anika. "The meeting will be public," he said, "but you present your evidence first." "Why?" "Because if I walk in and announce who I am, Moody will make this about a billionaire overruling a manager. Your records show what happened. My authority only keeps him from burying them." 52 residents filled the community room Wednesday night. Some stood along the walls. Herbie sat in front with his cane across his knees. Alessia chose a chair near the back and kept both hands clasped in her lap. Santiago sat beside Priya in the middle row. He wore the same dark coat from the coffee shop. Only Corey appeared to recognize him. Moody began at 6 with 3 folders aligned in front of him. "We are here because a former employee has created a safety risk for this property," he said. Company equipment was recovered from her apartment. A resident witnessed it there before inspection. We have also learned that supposed rent evidence may have been prepared after the disputed dates. Anika stood before he called her name. No, Moody said. You will have an opportunity after the company statement. You already gave the company statement at the last meeting. A few people murmured. Moody lifted one hand. This is exactly the conduct we have been dealing with. Corey opened the blue binder, but he did not remove anything. Moody displayed Alessia's statement first. A neighbor saw the welding unit in apartment 3C. Alessia rose from the back. I did not. Moody's face changed before his voice did. Ms. Mason, you signed the document. I signed what your office wrote after you said my lease renewal would become difficult. I never saw that machine in Anika's home. Her voice shook. She had to repeat the last sentence because someone near the door asked what she said. Moody closed the folder. A resident now withdrawing a signed statement under pressure does not resolve the equipment issue. Anika connected her phone to the community room screen. The first clip showed the inspection. The broad man's shoulder filled most of the image. Then the orange corner appeared beneath Annabella's blanket as he moved it from the tool bag toward the closet. Moody spoke before the clip ended. The technician was repositioning equipment already found during the inspection. Anika played the hallway recording next. The timestamp appeared at the bottom. Wednesday, 11:52 p.m. Moody inserted a key into 3C. The latch stopped the door. The broad man stood beside him with the same tool bag. That is an unauthorized camera in a common area, Moody said. The room went quiet in uneven waves. He had not denied being there. Why were you trying to enter her apartment at midnight? A tenant asked. Management had a lawful operational purpose. With a welding machine? Herbie called. Moody ignored him. Neither video proves what Ms. Beard claims. He is right about that part, Anika said. Several residents looked surprised. One clip does not prove the whole thing. Neither does my daughter's drawing. Neither do these. She placed the 4 rent stubs on the table. They have to be checked against records Moody does not control. She added the older stub bearing his name. 20 months ago, he told me to make my rent payable to W.R. Moody. The negotiated image shows the money entered his personal account. There is no transfer from that account to Hilltop. Moody turned toward Corey. You entered the receipt adjustment. Corey stood slowly. I entered the adjustment you approved. The system keeps version history. You changed 3C from paid to unpaid Tuesday afternoon, 40 minutes before the community meeting. You also added the welding unit to her employee inventory that day. He placed a flash drive beside the binder. I copied the change log before my access was removed. Moody's control slipped for the first time. You stole company data. I preserved it. Moody gathered one folder and looked toward the exit. Santiago stood. The letter in your hand came from an approval address my office discontinued in August, he said. Who gave it to you? Moody stopped. Santiago walked to the front, not quickly. A woman near the wall whispered his name. Others recognized it from the building signs. My name is Santiago Varela. My company owns Hilltop Property Group. There was no applause. Mostly there was confusion, followed by anger finding a new direction. Moody straightened. Mr. Varela, this meeting concerns a local personnel matter. I can brief you privately. You have briefed my office privately for 18 months. Santiago nodded toward Priya. The result is at least $114,000 in verified deposit discrepancies, most of it tied to in-person rent and harbor access invoices. The bank confirmed forged access to Ms. Beard's safe deposit box by a Hilltop employee. That employee identified the person who instructed her. Moody opened his mouth. Santiago held up one hand. Do not answer here. Preserve your answer for counsel. Priya placed a packet on the table. It contained bank traces, vendor ownership records, system history, and the preservation request for the forged power of attorney. Moody looked at Santiago. You are accepting a tenant's story over years of management records. No, I am accepting independent bank records over entries your office changed. Santiago then did something Anika had not expected. He faced the residents. My company had complaints before this week. We routed them back through the same regional structure being accused. That failure belongs above Mr. Moody as well as with him. His voice did not become emotional. The admission was stronger because he did not decorate it. Moody reached for his folders. You are suspended effective now, Santiago said. Leave every company key on the table. Security will collect your devices at the regional office. Anika heard the keys before she saw them. Moody removed the ring from his pocket and dropped it beside the blue binder. The metal struck the table with the same small click Anika had heard when he took hers. He left through the center aisle. Some residents watched him. Others watched Santiago, waiting to see whether another powerful man would turn the moment into a speech. Santiago did not. Anika picked up the ring, found the brass basement key by touch, and set it back down. These are company keys, she said. They are not mine anymore. Then she looked at Santiago. My rent record gets corrected tonight. He nodded. Tonight. And the theft complaint? Withdrawn in writing before this room empties. Donaldson, the company attorney, arrived 20 minutes late. He read the packet, removed his glasses, and asked Corey for the nearest printer. The meeting ended without a cheer. Residents formed small groups. Some apologized to Anika. Some said nothing. One man who had photographed the notice on her door deleted the picture while standing where she could see him, but did not admit he had shared it. Alessia approached last. I was afraid, she said. I know. That does not excuse it. No. They stood there with no clean sentence available. Annabella tugged Anika's sleeve. Can we go home? I have a spelling test. Anika looked at the clock. It was almost 9. Yes, she said. You still have to study. Hilltop corrected Anika's ledger before midnight. The theft complaint was withdrawn the next morning. The forged power of attorney investigation continued through bank interviews, subpoenas, and the kind of paperwork that moved more slowly than public anger. Moody was dismissed after the outside audit. Harbor Access lost its contracts. Several people above him were placed on leave, including the executive who had returned earlier complaints to Moody's region without independent review. Santiago did not save the Baltimore refinancing. The lender walked away, and financial papers treated the failed closing as a business setback before they treated the tenant records as a reason. 2 months later, he appointed an independent resident protection office that reported outside property operations. Elena agreed to help design the complaint system, though she did not return to his company. She and Santiago were still repairing their relationship. He mentioned that once, when he came to Hilltop without photographers and spent an afternoon listening to residents. Anika did not tell him he deserved forgiveness. She told him the 4th-floor laundry drain was backing up. He wrote it down. The company refunded Anika's 4 missing payments and her legal expenses. She used part of the money to finish the last 3 installments of her HVAC program. In February, she passed the certification exam. Santiago offered her a supervisory position at Varela Urban. Anika declined. She did not want her future attached to gratitude, and she did not want a job people could describe as a reward. Instead, she applied to an independent mechanical inspection firm. She passed the practical test, finished second in the interview scoring, and was hired when the first candidate accepted another offer. The job paid more, included health coverage, and did not come with an apartment tied to her employment. The Civil Review reopened 17 removals from Moody's region. The Turner family was located in Essex. Mrs. Turner still worked for the Postal Service and still remembered the exact Fridays she had handed over cash. Her case remained difficult, but this time somebody was collecting the surrounding records instead of asking her to prove everything alone. Saturday coffee with Alessia returned slowly. The first visit lasted 11 minutes. The second ended when neither woman knew what to say. On the fourth Saturday, Alessia brought cinnamon rolls and admitted she had almost stayed home. "So did I," Anika said. In May, Anika took Annabella to the National Aquarium. Under the blue light of the shark tunnel, Annabella filled 3 notebook pages and complained that one fish refused to stay still long enough to draw. That evening, she asked what they should do with Grandma's empty cookie tin. "Your choice," Anika said. Annabella placed the shark drawings inside, wrote the date in the lower corner, and carried the tin to the top shelf of her closet. She needed a chair to reach. Anika held the chair steady, but let her put it away herself. Months later, on the morning of Anika's first solo inspection, she passed Hilltop Gardens. A maintenance worker was taping a notice to the lobby board. From the sidewalk, Anika could not read the words. She noticed only that the woman pressed down all 4 corners before walking away. Anika checked the address of her next appointment, turned toward her car, and kept going. They took Anika's keys, but the records she protected unlocked the truth. Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to Malrick Coleman for more.